I had never heard of Jeremiah Copeland, imagine being called Copeland, until today. A little over a year ago, in May of 2025, this 21-year-old black father of a 4-year-old son, the father looking like he could be a middle school student, committed murder. Remember that some people regarding Karmelo Anthony said that they wouldn't be able to judge him because he looked so young. Copeland, a Navy sailor, strangled a fellow shipmate named Angelina Resendez, also 21 years old.
Military Judge Captain Frank Hutchinson handed down his sentence in less than 5 minutes. There was no audible gasps in the courtroom when he did it. Rather, some of the more powerful moments from today happened before he went into deliberations. Cameras are not allowed inside the Judicial Center, but if they were, you would have been able to see 21-year-old Jeremiah Copeland's mother and grandmother before the court. They both said they don't condone what Copeland did, killing fellow shipmate Angelina Resendez last May 29th before stuffing her body in a bag and dumping that bag in the woods in Broad Creek.
Now, what makes this case different? Same general age groups, like with Karmelo and Metcalf. Copeland pled guilty to unpremeditated murder in his bare-handed strangling of Resendez, not so far off from Karmelo's angle of self-defense, considering it's a pure lie. Well, obviously Resendez is a woman, so there's that, but really, shouldn't that mean this case would be more hyped up? A man strangling a woman to death? Shouldn't the fact that these were Navy sailors, both of them, get them in the news a bit more? But today, the case quietly ended with Copeland getting 44 years in prison, 9 more than Karmelo got. Could perhaps the reason I had never heard about this, the reason there's no riots in the street, the reason there's no tantrums or tirades on TikTok, the reason there's no crash-out circus on social media, could it be because Angelina Resendez, as you may have guessed, was brown, and therefore Copeland's sentencing could not be circumvented by claiming hyper-racism in his defense, because all of those types did not project themselves as the victim of white supremacy and feel some imaginary indignancy, some desire to exonerate themselves by defending Copeland. Sure, Copeland's case involved stuffing her in a bag and throwing it in the woods, but Karmelo simply didn't have the opportunity to hide his tracks, given that his insane mental breakdown caused him to murder right in front of numerous witnesses. I wouldn't say there was any more nefariousness in one case than the other. Oh, wait. Copeland was also charged with aggravated assault in the strangulation of a second victim, indecent recording of a third victim, and due to a plea deal, he escaped aggravated sexual assault and domestic violence charges for a fourth victim. By the way, they were apparently getting drunk and making out with Resendez when she saw something on his phone, which caused her to freak out, probably that indecent recording, and then that somehow triggered him to simply strangle her right there on the spot, I guess to hide his tracks, whatever those may be. Yet where's the fanfare? Why aren't the Who's from Whoville playing their flu-fluvers, their tartukas, their hoo-hoopers, their gardukas, their trumtukas, their slue-slunkas, their bloom-bloopers? Why aren't they playing their who-wonkas or electro-who-carnio flukes in protest of this tiny little baby newborn infant man murdering this woman? That tells you how important the myth of modern black oppression is to the narrative, the myth of evil white supremacists terrorizing everyone. Saving Karmelo Anthony from his own crime was some sort of vital linchpin in the grand scheme of continuing to parasitize the welfare state of the USA. Meanwhile, Angelina Resendez is some nobody that no one cares about because she had the wrong skin color. Black Americans aren't waging their forever war against brown people, so they don't give a damn about Copeland rotting for 44 years in his murder of this woman. By the way, he deserves the death penalty. Like Karmelo, he had an instant murder reaction, a murder reaction, if you will, to a situation he was in, taking the life of an innocent person to sate his own desires. A girl that he was apparently kissing moments beforehand, no less, and I doubt that she's the mother of his child, let alone all these other women that he's apparently abused beforehand. If the military isn't doling out death when one of their own has been murdered by another one of their own, then we really have become too soft. It's why I blame feminism for so much. I've had this epiphany recently that we don't live in the same universe. And I don't mean males and females and whites and blacks. I mean that when you go to the grocery store, you're surrounded by other people, but you can't interact with them. Without their consent, it's a crime to so much as, well, let's say, place your hand on their shoulder. Battery assault, sexual assault, whatever the reason, an innocent interaction is now a criminal activity, as if we're in a multiverse where we can see other people, where other people's matter takes up space in our universe, but we can't touch them unless they allow us. I think this is mostly the result of feminism. Women had little input in laws for so long that when they finally got into government, they injected themselves into every single aspect, every single problem that they saw. But men didn't push back on anything, and it ended up going too far. So just as with simps enabling hoes, so too is the baby-proofing of society also the fault of men. And men are very good at immediate survival instincts. I don't know if that's a skill exactly, but they're very good at it. What is around them at any given moment, solving direct issues, things like that. Women, on the other hand, they seem to be better at predictive problem solving for the future. I think this is because women have more time to socialize and share their stories with other women, which leads to discovery, like with scientists. Little Timmy got a concussion and a scar on his forehead. Now every other mother puts foam tubing on the edge of their hearths. The problem is that when you go overboard with social engineering, you break the system. Like bumpers on a bowling alley. If you can't gutter ball, there's no point playing. And society has been baby-proof to the point where nothing gets done, where people can walk free after heinous crimes. That's not all the fault of women, but it seems to correlate heavily with women. There's actually an expression for it. It's called loving a bill to death. It means to destroy a proposed bill by amending it with helpful additions until it becomes so egregious that it's unusable and hated by everyone. Except with the expression, it's done on purpose, with the intention to destroy the bill that someone else has proposed. Whereas with women baby-proofing society, well, this is done with the honest intent of being helpful. Yes, so helpful. Like, for instance, the call of sudden passion they allegedly tried to play during Karmelo's case. Getting mad dog angry and attacking someone shouldn't reduce your sentence. It should serve as proof that you are irredeemable. So was Jeremiah Copeland, despite his family, as always, trying to wash away his villainy with lies.
Mother and grandmother before the court. They both said they don't condone what Copeland did, killing fellow shipmate Angelina Resendez last May 29th before stuffing her body in a bag and dumping that bag in the woods in Broad Creek. However, they both said this moment will not define Copeland. His grandmother, Kathleen, stood from the stand to speak directly to Resendez's mother, Esmeralda Castle, saying, "We are going to one day make a very positive outcome of this," to which Castle made the shape of a heart with her hands. We asked her about that moment after the 44-year sentence for her daughter's killer was announced.
I just, we're all people, right? We're all humans, and this is sad, right? Like we're just we're putting ourselves in each other's shoes, right? This isn't a good situation, and how do we make it better? And that's what his grandmother was saying, like how we can make this better, and I resonate with that because even though this is what it is, right? There's opportunity for good.
Copeland's family didn't want to speak to us following the sentence being handed down.
The repugnant audacity of his family daring to claim this waste of life will not be defined by his psychotic deeds? Oh, it will. And now you will be too, as you decided, like the savages defending Karmelo, to board a sinking ship. Furthermore, the absolute gall to speak to the victim's mother and tell her that something good will come from her daughter being strangled to death and dumped in the woods for animals to eat by your grandchild? God. Again, feminism. Despite everything he did, the man himself apologized to the mother of Angelina Resendez, Esmeralda Castle, while he was in court, stating that there was no excuse for his actions. His grandmother, however, can't accept him having any accountability. The victim's mother responded to the grandmother's totally crazy claim by making hearts with her hands. Little tip for any women who might hear this: if you ever do this heart hand thing, you are signaling to every man that you have no male friends, that you have no hobbies besides TikTok, that you are as emotionally unstable as a grunt stuck with a plasma grenade, and that you have the IQ of an iPad baby, and that you probably have an OF account. Don't do heart hands. Back on topic, the mother, Esmeralda, did say that the Navy should have dealt with him sooner because there were pre-existing allegations, pre-existing women who were abused, as there always are in these kinds of cases, and that he never would have gotten to her Angie had something been done about that beforehand. But in her response to the grandmother's claims, she seemingly had no words of her own to respond with. She just parroted the lie that Copeland's grandmother commanded her to obey in court, that something good will come of this, which is exactly how women indulge each other. She can't say no. That there is an opportunity for good to come when your daughter is murdered, even after her murderer doesn't get the same conviction, even when he's done other things as well. Esmeralda Castle should have spat those words out in front of the cameras instead of swallowing them. It reminds me of that British boy beaten and left to die recently, with his father insisting that it wasn't a problem with immigration or racism. It's women like these, and I'm betting that British father has enough estrogen to count as a woman, that have baby-proofed society enough that savage men use our society as a playground without fear of punishment, or at the very least, that they act on impulse without thinking of repercussions due to living the first 18 of their lives protected from so much as stern words. But here's the funny thing. Well, not funny at all, really. This is, according to the poster, Karmelo's grandmother.
A white person to hit a black boy and get away.
White women. That's it.
Yeah. They can do whatever
they send a message. Yeah.
We like y'all.
It ain't the end of the road.
Make sure you don't say pattern recognition, or else the leftoids will come for you. See, there comes a point when everyone must condemn a culture for being too destructive. Whores, simps, certain religious beliefs. In the case of Copeland, it seemed to simply be a reaction to whatever Resendez saw on his phone, although, considering he had so many prior allegations regarding women, I would suspect that there was something else going on there with him. But with Karmelo, it was ghetto culture, very clearly. In either case, this instant murder reaction we see, particularly in young men of certain backgrounds, is something that I want to address again. I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but I want to bring attention to a TikTok I saw where a woman discusses the allegedly subjective differences between black and white people and states that Karmelo's decision was heartbreaking because the jury didn't waste their time deliberating until she was satisfied with the timer.
And that is how they could have came to a manslaughter. It does not explain how they came to murder. But sadly, at the end of the day, I think this jury didn't give Karmelo a fair shot. And here's why. You don't decide a 17-year-old who is unquestionably being approached by someone bigger and et cetera in that circumstance. You don't decide murder over manslaughter without some hours of discussion. They didn't pour over this case in 3 hours. They had their minds made up, is what I think. And that to me is a failure of Karmelo Anthony. Because if they had been thoughtful and read the law, right, each of them individually read the law, discussed the law, then they would have taken more time. Because it's not easy to analyze law when you're a juror. I really think that 3 hours tells me they didn't give a shit. And that to me is heartbreaking.
Right. Well, I do agree with her that you should give someone their due justice, but at the same time, how much deliberating is enough, really? I mean, what exactly is there to say about this case? It wasn't some Machiavellian scheme that he'd pulled off over the course of years or something. He pulled out a knife and he stabbed someone, and there were witnesses. It's not really... I mean, it's cut and dried, really. You want there to be something deeper to it because you need an excuse, right? By the way, if you want to see this woman on TikTok, her name's Lawyer Chick, without vowels in the name, and she's a lawyer from California, as you might have just straight up guessed. But there's another aspect to this, which is actually what I'm more irritated about. I don't care about that part. I mean, it's weird that she says that it's heartbreaking that they didn't deliberate for long enough, but... She didn't say they were wrong. She just said they didn't deliberate long enough. So this is the more irritating part to me.
Number one, provocation. I think that the prosecutor did a good job of saying that Karmelo is the one that provoked the physical contact. That Austin was just talking, and then Karmelo, by saying, touch me, you'll see what happens. Touch me, see what happens. That provoked Anthony. But this is why, in some ways, having a jury with black folks in it would have helped, because everybody knows that when you say touch me and see what happens, at least black folk, I don't know, I don't have white kids, so I don't know, but I'm a mom of black kids, an 18-year-old boy, and I'm telling you, if you say touch me and see what happens, you don't want the person to touch you. That's not your goal. You're not trying to provoke the touching. You're trying to posture in order to ward them off. You're posturing in order to make them scared. Like, I'm so tough, I'm so tough. You don't actually want to invite that physicality. The boy is 6'1", 200 plus.
He was 6'1", 200 plus. Now he's dead. She also said earlier on in here somewhere
Karmelo.
that Anthony was provoked. So she's got Karmelo's mind on her. So like she meant to say Austin, and she said Anthony. So she's got Karmelo on the mind, it would seem. So here's the thing. What she just described is, she basically just described black people as animals. That's what she did. She said that black people can't use English. She said that when a black person speaks English, he's not actually, or in this case he, but she, they're not actually speaking English. If you say, touch me and see what happens, you're daring someone to do it. You're calling them a coward if they don't do it. She's saying that it's more like a cat turning sideways and hissing and arching its back. It's more like a dog lowering its head, baring its teeth and growling. That it's some sort of animalistic thing that they do to try and ward off a predator. But is the rest of the world just supposed to be beast tamers or something? That's ridiculous. Why should we have to deal with people who speak in tongues? Speak English the same way everyone else does. Why should we have to live in a world where, oh, well, we didn't understand their body language, so they murdered us. Oh, we didn't understand the English that they were speaking, so they murdered us. They have something wrong with them, so they murdered us. I'm sorry. How does that make sense exactly? How is this a subjective defense in favor? And this woman says that she has a son, an 18-year-old black kid. Your son's going to end up in prison pretty soon if you think this is normal. If you're teaching him that this is normal, I mean, I guess that's his picture behind her. Wouldn't you think, on the wall there? I mean, if this is how he acts, if you think he just touch me, see what happens. If that's normal for your son to say, I'm going to be making content about him pretty soon, and you're going to crash out, and I'm going to make content about you as well. Like, how can you sit there and say that this is normal? This is normal for black people, like again, like they're animals. They're not animals, but you can't defend them by saying that, oh, they just can't use English the right way. Oh, you just don't understand the way black people act. Everyone else acts normal. Why can't certain black people? Well, we know that it's hood culture. It's the ghetto influence of rap music and stuff. We know that it's not normal to act like this. There's no scenario where you should even be threatening someone or saying, I mean, God, she's acting. It's so frustrating to me because it's such a BS excuse. And she's a lawyer, a Californian lawyer, but still a lawyer. And she's basically saying that Karmelo is saying, I do not consent to you touching me. I do not approve of you touching me. Stay out of my personal space. Like earlier when I was talking about how we live in different dimensions and you're not allowed to touch people. That's basically what she's saying. That Karmelo did not give them consent to touch him. And that's the defense? That they weren't allowed to touch him because he lived in a different dimension? And then the response was him stabbing them in the heart with a knife. No. Everyone else in the world, white people, brown people, red people, yellow people, they are not beast tamers, and black people are not beasts. This is an excuse for someone acting like an animal, but he was not an animal. He was just, I don't know, temporarily hood. And by the time he gets out of prison, he's probably going to be permanently hood. I don't imagine that's going to help him. But I found this very frustrating to me because, I mean, what an excuse. Like, any length, any mental gymnastics to say that black people's English is just different from rest of world's English. Black people's body language is just different from everyone else's. That you should just expect a black kid to pull out a knife and stab you to death. And that's just the way the world works, is it? And we have to respect that, do we? So, we see now how it is. Brown women can be strangled to death and no one even knows about it. Black men can commit murder and be locked up for 4 decades, leaving behind a 4-year-old son, and that's just par the course. The matriarchs of both the murderer and the victim's family brush it under the rug and say that it's a good thing. A white person dies and hell on earth breaks loose to defend the black man. The cycle continues until the next warm body hits the pavement. But when does it break? Anyway, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please do the YouTube things.